And we're live. Hello and welcome to a special episode of Pulse Hex Psychology and Hex Therapy Live with Maddie, ALLin, and BlazeMakesMusic. Welcome.
Hey, Maddie. Hey, everybody. I'm pretty excited for today, coming at you live from the Hex Rehab retreat down here in Australia. Just have done a move recently to a new place, got a little bit more space and some greenery and a little bit more nature to enjoy. So I think it's a good setting for today's chat, I reckon.
Yeah, that background is beautiful. It almost doesn't look real.
Yeah, those trees are pretty cool, hey? And you also may hear some donkeys braying at intermittent points in the session today. But,
as long as they don't talk about COVID or say anything copyrighted, then the channel won't get taken down.
Yeah, I think we might be safe. They're mostly interested in hay and sniffing a lot of things.
Awesome. Well, let's hit the intro and then we can talk about the state of my brain and the state of the Hex community and everything else that we can talk about today.
Sounds exciting. Looking forward to it.
Awesome.
It's from Maddie, ALLin of HexTherapy.Live. I like Maddie. Maddie tries to make the world a healthier place. He's a mental health professional. He's done research. There's nothing that a human being could do better than try and heal his fellow man.
So there's been so much drama in the Hex community recently. You would almost wonder if, the price action was getting into people, or maybe people were getting bored, or maybe speculators had come into the space. We have the Maddie, ALLin controversy, right? Where I spread some FOMO that I later regretted and retracted, did a formal apology. I had gotten into a car accident as well, and so that definitely screwed with my head psychologically. And then we had all this news about the God Whale coming out recently on Twitter and proving their identity on the chain. Where should we begin?
It's been a huge, it just feels like it's been lifetimes since we spoke last time, especially because there's been so much that's happened, so much that's gone down. But maybe we should start, because I know when I heard that you'd been in an accident, I was actually a little bit worried. So I just want to kind of start and make sure that you're feeling okay physically. And
thank you.
Yeah, how things are going for you.
Yeah, it was really shocking, to just get rear-ended, and I didn't want to make too big of a deal out of it until I started doing my own research and finding out how serious it could be. And then I, decided that the next 48 hours or so would have been a wait and see period, extra rest and all that. And so far so good. I was a little bit mixed up and scrambled at first, and now it's mostly, I actually didn't ever really know what it felt like myself to have a TBI. And then also just kind of having this huge responsibility to the community, right? To be somebody who's trusted. And so whenever I got overexcited about the Pulse Chain launching rumor / meme that had been propagated by the community, I propagated it myself, and people took it the wrong way. And so I felt like everything... Well, I just felt a sense of regret and responsibility, and so I went into the Telegram voice chat and I, gave my most sincere and honest apology and tried to take responsibility for, the community holding me accountable, which I actually appreciate. And I think at the end of the day, it almost gave maybe the community a chance to, look at ourselves and decide kind of how we want to handle situations where the broadcaster has made a mistake, right?
Absolutely. And look, I mean, there's been a lot going on as well, and I think wanted to offer some empathy to you as well that, you know, none of us can be perfect with this stuff. You know, crypto and Hex is a very confusing and like emotionally heightened place to be playing, and especially when you've been through something like a car accident, when you've, you know, taken a bump to the head and then possibly dealing with a minor brain injury there. These are big things, and like certainly I know anything related to brain and brain injury, sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult to moderate some of those heightened emotions and some of the impulses that can come about as a result of that. So, you know, I think just a very small moment of excitement was there for you, and I think it was all coming from a really good and positive place, obviously with no malice at all, just simply being so excited for the future that, you know, you put a tweet out, and sometimes these things happen. You know, we're not perfect, and I think your history of what you've done for the community as well really speaks for itself. So personally, you know, speaking from where I'm sitting, there's absolutely no ill will that I could ascribe to that whatsoever. You know, I just think it's
I really appreciate you saying that, and I think I would also say to the people who are wanting to defend me that I also agree with the people who aren't necessarily supporting, right, what I did. And I think that, again, that creates maybe a teachable moment where we can all be empathic towards each other and really remember that we are one community. And if people, you know, like, were upset by my actions, then I would want to validate that, and I would want to do better. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from, at least. And I really do appreciate all the support. Tons of people have direct messaged me and, you know, asked how I'm doing, and hoping that I get better soon and all that.
Well, we do, Maddie. You're a very important person in the community, and not just because of what you do, just because, you know, we've grown a bond with you and we care about what happens. And if you need some time to go and take care of yourself and get better at all that sort of stuff, you know, at the very least, I can speak for myself and say you've totally got my support there. So
thank you so much. I know Papa B really put it all in perspective when he was validating everything that I had gone through when I called him directly and, you know, owned up, because they got slammed for, you know, hour after hour after hour. The voice chat, which is like, you know, that's a community good. That's something where people are volunteering. They were getting bombarded with people asking about whether Pulse was really going to launch on the 18th. And so in that case as well, I wanted to take responsibility, but also I felt supported by Papa B a lot.
Absolutely. So,
yeah,
like great stuff, Matt. And like I said, I think it's a very mature response as well, being able to see both sides there, obviously seeing it from your own point of view, but understanding why others, you know, would find, you know, mistakes like that can create some challenges for other people. And that's, I guess, part of being a community, is sometimes our actions affect other people too. But yeah, I think, you know, that's something I definitely want to push forward very strongly in this conversation today, is really coming back to those things that bind us together, that bigger picture of where we're going and, you know, why Hex is so important, and really just creating and reinforcing that narrative of really like the Hexicans journey and what it means, and what it means to, you know, come into Hex, be part of the community, to watch it grow and to start overcoming challenges and hurdles as they face us on this journey. I think it's a great way to reframe when situations like this happen. So I'm pretty excited to get into that perhaps a little bit later on as well today. Absolutely.
And I can't even say how much I love this comment by Bitfinesse. Thank you so much for the $50 super chat. And there's a little bit more to this than meets the eye, because somehow Bitfinesse knew who my favorite emo band of all time was, a little band called Taking Back Sunday. And some of the words here go along to one of their best songs, Q Without the E, come from the team. Bitfinesse says, just to be clear, Maddie could slit my throat, and in my one last gasping breath, I'd apologize for bleeding on his shirt. That means so much, Vanessa.
It gets you in the feels right here.
I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I guess, I mean, do we need to chat about the Nomics thing, or has it been done to death at this point?
I would love your feedback on it, because I'm going to have Clay on Monday night. He agreed to an interview, and myself, my opinion keeps going back and forth on the matter.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to hear your take.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess I just want to start by acknowledging that this, again, is one of those emotionally heightened situations. Feelings are, flaring at the moment, and a lot of different opinions are being thrown around. I'm not necessarily saying that mine is the correct opinion. It's just simply my own reaction to what happened there. I'd say overall my position is pretty simple. I think while Clay is running his own business, he's obviously independent from us. He is more than entitled to set his own rules and decide how his site is run. Probably my only real gripe with the situation is the consistency issue. For me personally, I don't feel, by looking at the data of what's happened with other tokens, that the rules that he's applied to Hex have been completely equitably applied to other tokens, and even the bigger coins like Bitcoin and Ethereum in the space, when removing that circulating supply for the OA. So that was my initial response, was set whatever rules you like, create, manage your website how you like. I would just prefer that things were done more consistently in a way that we could feel confident that things were, being done for completely fair reasons. And that, like I said, not necessarily the correct opinion, but that's where I'm coming from.
And that's a great point that I've heard many, many, many people in the community echo.
Exactly.
Maybe not with such words that are appropriate for a family audience, but
yeah, look. And I mean, I've seen some great, amazing video responses to this whole situation as well. I was absolutely shook and floored by RG3's video response. I thought that was amazing. The passion that he absolutely displayed, I loved, because it just showed me how much he cared about the whole situation. And how, again, he was able to see a bigger picture, that, this, regardless of what's going on as crypto, Hex is this huge disruption to the financial system, and we absolutely can't lose sight of that, and get too bogged down in kind of what's happening in crypto politics. We've always known we're sort of different, and we maybe have higher ideals and bigger things that we're trying to accomplish here. So I absolutely love that. I also was in hysterics when I watched Hodl Dog's response.
Yes.
Hodl Dog is my hero. I think I tweeted that out, or I said that soon after.
Absolutely.
It was just so funny as well, just coming from this cool, calm, collected man, seeing again that emotion kind of creep in. So I know it's obviously really affected a lot of people, and a lot of people are feeling betrayed. And I absolutely understand that feeling. And, same thing, I wish that this hadn't happened. But, I think my general take is onwards and upwards to bigger things from here, and Clay can kind of do as he wants. So that's where I'm sitting. How about you now, Maddie, after you've had some time to absorb and think and see everyone else's reactions?
We've definitely tapped into something that's really important that needs to get acknowledged on both sides. If we're going to make sense of Nomics, adjusting Hex's circulating market supply, which affects the equation of what the market cap is, which changes the rules on the scoreboard.
Yep.
That's going to hit some people pretty deep for a lot of reasons, right? including the fact that Hex has been a project that was called a scam for so long. And, you know, so Hexicans were left feeling like either gaslighted or, you know, just a lot of people missed out on getting more gains. Or, I mean, that's the root of this CoinMarketCap lawsuit that's being, you know, taken through the courts now. So I think from a legal perspective, it's kind of weird for Clay to be fudging the numbers. However, I also researched I researched and saw the methodology of CoinMarketCap evolve when people started gaming the system. And so I remember when they wrote up all their rules for the first time and published them. And then whenever Richard was trying to get listed, or he was bringing up the issue right around the time when Hex launched, that's the thing that got me to become a YouTuber for Hex, was the issue that CoinMarketCap was gatekeeping the Hex market cap and the publicity that goes along with that. And so it's an issue that's really dear to my heart, because on one hand, like, the struggle motivated me to become a part of the community. It caused me to engage, and so I see that as kind of a silver lining on the whole thing. But I really want to flesh all this out with Clay, and to, you know, to walk through maybe his rationale and to try to come up with an understanding, and maybe not, you know, maybe when I'm talking to him, I'll change my mind or something. But at this point, I really want to see, like, what is the opportunity there for us to get more understanding and clarity, for him to make his case, you know, in a video format, and for me to make my case, whatever that would be, on behalf of maybe the alternative side of the community. Because
sure.
data is hard, right?
It's not easy. And look, I'm all for free speech, and I'm all for, you know, hearing what other people have to say. Obviously I hold a certain belief at this moment in time. It doesn't mean that it can't be challenged or it can't be wrong. And there's certain assumptions I'm making here. Maybe some of them are wrong, you know, but yeah, I mean, just for me, like, at the end of the day, as much as this has been something that's really affected all of us and brought out all of these emotions, I still maintain I just don't actually think it's that important. And I don't want to minimize what anyone's feeling or thinking about this by saying that. I just think that, like, Hex is such a revolutionary thing that, you know, market cap ranking sites may come, they may go. I think we still don't really have a good way of, you know, utilizing market cap within the crypto space. And it may be that what Richard's always said is just in fact true. It's a vanity metric, and it doesn't actually make the most sense for ranking coins in the cryptocurrency space. And it may be that we just move away from this a little bit more. But, you know, like I said, I totally support you chatting with him and seeing what comes of it. I think that's, like I said, free speech. We're all here for free speech. So
thanks.
You know, all power to you.
And huge shout out to Molly the investor. Wow. Thank you for the $500 super chat and for this valuable comment. So you've quoted the real God whale here when you say Hex is the next big thing in crypto since the creation of Bitcoin. Hex over delivers on the promise of Bitcoin on every front. It's just that people are very slow to see the genius and Nobel Prize winning aspects of Hex. We will just have to show them, I guess. And this is something that the true ETH, I believe it's the ETH God whale, who holds the Origin ETH coins.
That's right.
And
yep.
Still is anonymous, but has created an account on Twitter that was then verified by Funding Jim on the blockchain. So a transaction that created proof, was established, and that also came around the same time that there was a $500,000 donation to the Netflix style documentary crew that's making a movie about Hex. Is that right?
It's so incredible. Hey, I think that got everybody so excited about this documentary. Not that we weren't before, but just knowing that there's this huge budget there available now at this very moment for them to take things to that, to create that vision that they were aiming for in the beginning. That's I'm definitely very excited by that. And also just the fact that like some of the members of the community have been able to have some interaction with the actual ETH Genesis whale, like this almost mythical figure that has been part of Hex since the beginning, pretty much. And and is someone that is already so popular and like revered and talked about, that we've never actually been able to have any conversation with. And now he's out and he's tweeting, he's saying this amazing stuff about Hex, and actually talking to the community and following community members back and all that great stuff. It's kind of just so cool that we have an ETH Genesis whale interacting with our community. Amazing.
Yeah, this is somebody who I think must be a billionaire in Ethereum and a billionaire in Hex now.
I believe so, yeah.
And they actually referred to themselves, I believe, almost as a team, which led Silver the Antidote to speculate that it's Three Arrows Capital, which I remember I did a show on a long time ago, maybe 6 months ago, covering that. Interesting.
Yeah. Very cool stuff.
And so Motley says, this is the most bullish tweet in Hex history. Focus on this and not useless drama. The last comment that I'll make about the Nomics topic for now is, what is it in golf when an expert player gives an advantage to a newer player? Like a handicap. I think.
Handicap, yeah.
So that's where you start off giving the better player a disadvantaged score because they're so confident that they will still be able to win the game. And I think in the case of Hex, even if we've been manually adjusted 20 spots down, we will rise again. We will be more glorious than ever. And we will take the number one, not only the number one spot, but also the number 2 and number 3 spots with P-Hex, E-Hex, and Pulse.
I absolutely love it. The Hex handicap. Because we already know we're number 1. That's amazing. That's right. But big shout out to Motley. I think everything you said there is so true, and especially that last sentence. That's pretty much where my head's at too. So.
Oh yeah.
Amazing.
So what's the psychology of helping people not focus on drama? I mean.
Yeah, interesting question, Maddie. I think there's lots of ways that we could go about it. But something I've been thinking about and working on a fair bit recently, and I was actually having a chat to Jay Plush last night as well, who was having almost the same thoughts at me at the same moment, which is pretty cool. So shout out to Jay. So something I've been thinking about is Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. Have you ever heard of Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, Maddie?
I have not, but I'm excited to hear more about it now.
Yeah, awesome. So The Hero's Journey, Joseph Campbell says, is basically almost like a developmental stage that all of us go through in some way or another as we're trying to realize our full potential. And basically, he says it's a process that you can break down into like 12 steps or 12 stages in this hero's journey. Yes, so this one's a little bit more an esoteric kind of description, there's also a really, I think, a pretty good breakdown of the hero's journey in relation to Lord of the Rings that I found just a little bit earlier. So I wonder if I can pop that in the chat too.
Interesting. Yeah.
Copy. Let's see how I go here. Yeah, that's it. I'll send that to you, Maddie. You can take a look at it. But yeah, so there's basically these like 12 stages that each of us individually progresses through in this journey towards kind of actualizing ourselves. But it's also something that you see time and time and time again in culturally important stories. Okay, so you see it in The Lord of the Rings, you see it in Star Wars, you see it in Harry Potter, you see it in like the great, classics kind of the ages. And it's this structure that just shows up time and time again. And so what I thought maybe we could try to do today is to break down the hero's journey, but for the hexagon, and what that journey actually looks like for the hexagon, and maybe try to apply what these stages would look like as we progress.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, let's do that. Cool? Yeah, I thought that could be really, really fun, because I just think after a time that has been a little bit emotionally heightened, where things have been a little bit more stressful, a bit more confused, maybe the price has taken a little bit of a hit, I just think, again, having that way to like refocus our minds and our attention on the bigger picture and what's actually happening here, what's actually going on, and what we're striving towards. I just think that's a great way to bring the community back together and just remind us of what's important. So the hexagon's journey.
I've got the ad-free version here.
Hey, sweet. Much better. Okay, so the hero's journey that we're calling the hexagon's journey now. The hexagon's journey often begins in the ordinary world. So we see the hero's normal life at the start of the story before the adventure begins. So for the average hexagon, I mean, maybe Maddie, you could even tell me a little bit about what your ordinary world was like prior to Hex.
My ordinary world was, working in the mental health field, doing therapy all day, every day, and wanting to save using and learn more about crypto, because I saw that as a way to, I guess, accumulate wealth, or also kind of as a nerdy thing. I am in it for the tech, and people can make fun of me all they want. But also, having financial freedom wasn't something that I saw. So maybe that's going to be later on in the journey. But at least for the day-to-day, I was definitely seeing the prices of things go up, everything except my paycheck.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely some themes in there that most of us can probably relate to. Like, we might not have all been working in mental health, but we likely had a 9-to-5 job. We were trying to save money, often just having this feeling that, it was like sand slipping through our fingers, not always understanding why. We were probably very deeply, Hex Force 1, same. Yes, I thought I would have to work for the rest of my life. I think we all just thought that. We all just thought that that's how life would go. We'd work till we were 65, maybe 75 if things got really bad, and that would be the next 50 years of kind of what life would look like for us. And I think also we were really, just deeply entrenched in fiat and the, I'll keep it family friendly, but the mind F that fiat can be as well, being a subject to inflation and terrible government policy, and just kind of being stuck in this system that we may not have been totally aware was robbing us of so much economic energy. So I think, there's a lot of themes there that most of us can probably relate to.
Life throughout all human history, life has always been filled with tragedy, right, among other experiences as well. And so I think like the ordinary world is in a state now where we have this attention economy. We have, you know, freemium models where people's attention is for sale to advertisers, where we have more and more complex systems that have their pros and their cons. And so all that kind of creates, I think, in a lot of people, disillusionment. People get burnt out on news, on what to take action on. They don't feel like their vote counts. They don't feel like their voice can be heard, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, and I think that especially with health crises, et cetera, lockdowns, you know, that really weighs on people's mental health. I think for all of the advances that we've had in our society, which many have been amazing, there's still problems when it comes to, I guess, you know, governments and organizations and power distributions. And what we're seeing, maybe the ordinary world is centralized and corrupt.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so like the ordinary world, you know, where the majority of people still are, you know, they're still subject to this system. It's still something that affects, I mean, I think this might have been a point that it might have been Motley made on a stream recently. I can't remember exactly who it was, but just the idea that there are only 60,000 or now 70,000 hex stakers, you know, and there are billions of people in the world still in the ordinary world. And this is the reality that they're facing. And it sucks, you know, it sucks to be part of that system. So yeah, you know, that's the ordinary world. And this is often where we find the hero, you know, when we first see them in a story. You know, we find, obviously in Lord of the Rings, we find the Shire. So the hobbits are all, you know, living in the Shire, and that, it's not such a bad place there. It's a lot of fun, but there's this whole other world that they don't know about yet. And there's all of these other things.
They're sheltered there.
They're sheltered. And, you know, same in Star Wars, you know, we find, you know, Luke on his home planet living with adopted parents, again, just not even knowing he's a Jedi, all that stuff, right? So just ordinary world, ordinary life. All right. So then the next point is the call to adventure. So the hero is faced with an event, conflict, a problem, or a challenge that makes them begin their adventure. So I don't know if for you there was like a specific moment or a specific challenge that came up that made you begin to dig, made you begin to question things or to look in new places. I don't know if you can remember a moment like that in your journey.
Absolutely, I can.
Mate, I'm so glad you said that. Go on.
So let me see. So there was a challenge. There was a Hex challenge. I didn't even know about Hex YouTube yet, I don't think. Or maybe I just discovered that. This was in the first maybe 6 months of Hex. Yeah. And there was the Annette challenge, I believe.
Right.
And maybe she had more than one challenge. She had a challenge where you would go to Best Buy or a place that sold computers and change all the home screens to hex.com and then take a picture of it and post it on Twitter. And then there was another one where we had to all post something about CoinMarketCap not gatekeeping us to page 3. And so it was that particular movement of hashtag no page 3 or whatever it was at the time. That got really me to make my first, you know, infographic or advertisement to put on Twitter, and then led to me really doing a deep dive into the community side of things.
Amazing. That's really, really cool. So that was like your call to becoming a streamer, or the streaming adventure, or the Hex promotion adventure. I love it. That's right. Really cool. Yeah, for me, there's probably a couple of moments that were quite pivotal. Like, firstly, I think what got me exploring crypto in general was really just how crazy it was going to be to like buy a house. Because like in the ordinary world, obviously that's the thing you do, right? You get a job, you get a mortgage, you pay it off for 30 years. And so as I started looking at that, I was like, this is crazy. This is so much money. Like, I can't even really save for a deposit. And like, you know, I have decent level of skills. I have, you know, a decent job. Like, it shouldn't, how could it be this hard for me to afford a basic thing like a roof over my head? So that was probably like the first just aha moment, was just realizing how insane that was and how no one else seemed to think it was insane. Like, that was another big part of it as well, was just that everybody seemed to be accepting this as normal. So I think that really began my adventure into crypto, you know, overall. And I bought some Bitcoin and I started in that space. But for Hex in general, I think it was just, there was just this excitement. Like, it was an excited call to adventure. I didn't really know the problem I was solving or the challenge I was solving when I got into Hex, but I knew I was really excited. And there was this really excited dude named Hexo who was streaming and yelling about this thing called Hex. And I thought it would seem like a pretty cool idea. So I probably didn't even completely realize the conflict or problem that I was trying to solve when I bought Hex. I only kind of realized that retrospectively. So that was, so that's the call to adventure. And I think like maybe as we're going through this as well, like it'd be fun to think about the fact that these 12 steps like sum up each of our own individual journeys, but it's also the journey that we want to help to lead people who are still in the ordinary world through as well as they embark onto Hex. And then thirdly, I actually think that there's a particular stage that the Hex community as a whole is at right now, and maybe we could try to figure that out as we go along as well, like to try to figure out which one of these steps actually best characterizes where we're standing as a community right now and what we could do to get to the next step together.
I love your line of thinking.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. And I've got a couple of other sort of announcements at the end of it as well that I'll make. But
cool.
So that was a call to adventure. I guess any other thoughts for you? Anything else about the call to adventure that seems important?
Well, I just wanted to read out Tasha's comment here. She said, my ordinary world was doing as I saw my mother do, where I learned about money and finances. The call was my desire to become financially independent, which led me to seek knowledge.
That's awesome. Well done, Tasha. And so cool that you found Hex as well. And you answered the call. Because, that actually leads us to the next step, which is the refusal of the call. So, like, often in these heroes' journeys, the hero initially refuses the adventure because of hesitation, fears, insecurity, or any number of issues. So, again, something that we see in all of those great stories, Harry Potter, the hesitation that he felt in the beginning, entering the world of magic, Luke Skywalker, all of them. I'm probably beating a dead horse here, but you kind of get the picture. Did you have any moments of refusal? Were there any moments of fear or hesitation for you, or any coming about maybe even later on in the journey that you didn't expect?
Well, I'm not sure how much of a refusal it was, but there was kind of a coming to a realization of what my best medium would be. So I started off, I was like, I'm going to write articles.
Yeah.
Because I thought like, I read articles, so doesn't everybody else? But it turns out nobody reads articles, especially about something as obscure at the time as Hex was. I mean, you think the coin ranking sites are gatekeeping, you should wait and see what the publications are doing, right? And so seriously, actually, it surprised me how much gatekeeping there was in the article industry. And we saw that with Randy Hilarski as well. He got fired from his journal, like more than one journalism position, or they like stopped listing his stuff, or however you want to look at it, because he was independent and freelance, I should say. But that his stories stopped getting accepted because he wanted to explain how great Hex was, and so in that sense, I didn't find my jam until I started going on YouTube.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm glad you found your jam, and you got over any of the confusion or indecisiveness that may have been there, and that's really cool. I'm trying to remember like what my refusal of the call may have been. Like I'm sure I've faced like fears and insecurity. Like I think for me, honestly, some of it was just actually believing that this was going to be as big as it's already become and as it will be in the future. I think just my like logical brain and the brain that had been trained by the fiat system and the 9-to-5 grind and all of that sort of stuff. There was a big part of my mind that refused to let go of that reality, and almost the familiarity and the predictability of that reality was difficult for me, I think, to let go of at certain different points. And I think further down this list, there were a few moments where I think I finally moved past that. But definitely insecurity was there, fear, hesitation, all that stuff for sure happened. Ooh. And I think like
it sets up the rising action,
right? Yeah, for sure. And I think like that's maybe something for each of us to be mindful of in the early journey of any hexicans that we may onboard or who may be coming into the community, that there are these moments, and it can be early on, where people are afraid or they just don't believe, or the scam stuff gets them, or whatever, that there are these things going on for people early on. And I think it's just something to be mindful of, that this is one of those kind of mini challenges for each of us to move past and to help others move past as well.
Absolutely.
Cool. So that leads us to meeting the mentor. So the hero encounters a mentor that can give them advice, wisdom, information, or items that ready them for the journey ahead. And for me, this actually was a pretty linear progression, because I had the refusal of the call, and I actually hadn't really known about Richard until I was in Hex and until I was already invested. And so it wasn't until I found Richard's materials and his streams that I think I began that process of being able to move through that fear, because obviously he had the information. He had been such an OG in the crypto world, had really thought through crypto and how to make it better, and he had so many great arguments as to why Hex was better than these other cryptocurrencies that were out there, particularly Bitcoin. That was the beginning, I think, of my mentoring process. And there's been lots of other mentors I think I've had during my journey as well. Like definitely Karim and yourself have been amazing, just members of the community, always just providing that wisdom and information and evidence and statistics that I can use to put my logical mind at ease. Like that's always really helped me. And Wales has been a huge had a huge impact on my journey with his incredible charts. Johnny Chaos has always just had these amazing ways of explaining things in like a visual sense as well. Hey Johnny, I was just talking about you. I don't know if that, I actually didn't realize that you had commented. So, you know, another little bit of a vibe there, I think. Yeah. Yeah, so all, you know, there are these amazing mentors in Hex, and again, I think as each of our journeys progresses, we begin being the mentor as well. That's you know, perhaps one of the hats that we put on in the Hex community as time goes on, because we've got the information, we've seen it, we understand that a 70% dip ain't nothing to worry about, right? Because we've seen it so many times before. We know what happens next. But if you're new, you don't. So that those mentors and the mentoring environment seems really important to me. What do you reckon, Maddie?
Oh yeah, I think, you know, the whole mentorship aspect is really something that I see as a way to pay forward, you know, the mentorship that I've gotten. Yeah. And so definitely the Hexologist, RG3, yes, and Richard Hart, RJ, right?
Absolutely.
Are the three that set the example, that showed me the ropes, right? That gave me the instructions. And, you know, even I would say Joe Hexotic being there by my side for my first couple of streams, and, you know, just so many people being supportive. It really caught me by surprise, and definitely kept me motivated to keep going. And so I try to do the same whenever I see a new Hex or Pulse YouTuber. I try to, you know, shout them out, give them praise, tell them they're doing a good job. Especially, I noticed whenever I was new or whenever someone else is new and they get off of a live stream, you could be judging yourself pretty harshly, or really not even have an appreciation for how well you did. And so a lot of times I'll tell people, I know it doesn't seem like it now, probably because your nerves are shot, but you did a really great job. Yeah. And so it's those little observations, I think, and experience that allows mentorship to be paid forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's just those little tidbits of insight, those little things that you just, you know, you just don't know unless you've got good mentoring. You know, even things as simple as, you know, when you're new, you don't necessarily know how to set a limit order so you don't damage the price when you sell Hex. Like, there's just these little things that other people can kind of guide you through, that could just make your experience so much better and build your confidence and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, the mentor, meeting the mentor, becoming the mentor, spreading the mentoring, I think is an incredibly important part of Hex, and something that I think this community in particular has done so well and has been such a big part of its success. And so I don't think we can underestimate how important the mentor is in Hexican's journey.
Oh yeah.
Cool. If you want to, you can read that one out for us if you feel like it, Maddie.
Which so in the comments, it is now says, I had never heard of Hero's Journey, digging it. Thanks, Blaze. And
awesome.
For part number 5, it says crossing the threshold. The hero leaves their ordinary world for the first time and crosses the threshold into adventure.
Yes, absolutely. So again, I mean, I guess, can you think of any examples in, like, even just like movies or stories where that crossing of the threshold first happens?
I did a test live stream with Joe Hexotic the day before we were supposed to do our first show, and Richard retweeted it, so it got like hundreds of views instantly. And we were so caught off guard by so many people watching all at once that we decided to go ahead and do our first show just impromptu. And so that was when I crossed the threshold.
That's really cool. I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, I think I've had like quite a few crossing the threshold moments. Like even just like moving to this place where I'm at the moment. Like For me, the world has been a pretty weird place for the last like year and a half, and especially Australia has been quite a strange place as well. And I think there was definitely a moment when I decided to leave the city and go and find some nature and sorry, I just got distracted by T-Bird. Crypto Heartbeat did a cool video recently on the hero's journey too. It's the formula for basically every Hollywood movie. That's right, T-Bird. Yeah, it comes up time and time again. Yeah, but I think it was that moment of fully trusting Hex and knowing that, I'm going to be able to sustain myself and, leave the city, perhaps even leave the country. And I think it just kind of got to that deeper level of believing that was actually possible. Has happened, yeah, even in just like the last 5 or 6 weeks. Interestingly, as the dip was happening as well. So it's like funny how those things can kind of strengthen your belief sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's how I began crossing the thresholds of late. So that's pretty cool, which brings us to the next one, which I think could be quite crucial and relevant to our recent experience in Hex. Tests, allies, and enemies. The hero learns the rules of the new world and endures tests, meets friends, and comes face to face with enemies. So, how can we frame that? Well, I mean, I guess, are there any, it doesn't necessarily have to be recent events, but are there any tests or, enemies that you can think of that have been important in your Hex journey?
I mean, nothing really jumps to mind at first. Yeah. Nothing like really significant. There have been some trivial moments, like when CZ blocked me on Twitter, but I think everybody's got that badge of honor. So yeah, tell me more about your experience.
Yeah, I definitely feel as though there has been a bit of a test recently, in a lot of ways. One, obviously, I think for anybody who might be a bit newer, dealing with the price action perhaps was a bit of a test in just understanding how your emotions can begin to be triggered when, the price doesn't quite do what you may be expecting it to do when you buy Hex. And I certainly had, some of my onboards as well get a little bit worried during that time. So, price action, I think, tests some people, especially early in their journey. But I think as well, just maybe some of the conflict and some of the unexpected things that have happened recently, whether it be Nomics, for example, I think that's been a little bit of a test as well, like just a test of the community, a test of the strength of the community, test of the bond.
That's a great example.
Yeah, and exactly like you said earlier, I think it poses the question of how are we going to deal with these types of tests going forward? When things don't go exactly to plan. I think Hexagons have a great history of being able to respond to adversity, gatekeeping, and the whole thing with CoinMarketCap. And this one seems to have particularly brought up a lot of emotion for us all. So, yeah, that question is there of like, what can we do? How can we grow stronger as a result of this? How can we actually improve the situation? How can we actually improve our connections in the community? I think is a great way to reframe what's happened recently. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I guess there are all kinds of tests, whether it's the gatekeeping or whether it's just trying to onboard people. Somebody mentions here in the comments about crossing the threshold for the average user could be turning fiat into coin and then swapping into Hex and then staking.
Yes. Yeah, that's actually totally true, Tasha. Your first stake, I think, is definitely crossing the threshold. And absolutely for anybody out there who has done a 5555 stake as well, I think that's a huge cross the threshold moment. That's really, because I think you've also said it many times as well, Maddie, when you can think about something and kind of know it cerebrally, but when you actually hit that button, like your body kind of learns like what's actually happening here when you put in a long stake. So great pick up there, Tasha.
Well, and I think you could also not know what you're doing when you do that, and then have a greater appreciation later on.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, so I mean, I guess that's pretty much the test allies and enemies. You know, allies and enemies stuff, I don't know if it's necessarily the most useful language for us. Like I think we do have some ideas of, you know, who our enemies may be in crypto, whether it's the Furus or the gatekeeping or CoinMarketCap, you know, or whoever it might be. But like I said, I think that this stuff, it just sort of tests us more, and I think there's an opportunity there for us to grow and become stronger. So that's my 2 cents.
And welcome to all the haters out there. It's not shadow banning if I tell you you're banned publicly, and you know you're banned, right? So let's get our definitions right. And if you're coming in, normally I'm going to be pretty forgiving, but I hit my head earlier this week and I don't feel like putting up with it. So it's my channel, not yours. And so, like, you know, think about what would be the most helpful to the conversation that we're having right now. And please contribute, because we love the interaction that we have with the audience that knows what the rules are and knows what we're trying to accomplish here. And if you don't like it, get out.
Well said, Maddie. Well said. I like it. Cool stuff. So yeah, then I guess we're kind of through the midway point. I maybe won't drag it out too long, but yeah, the approach is so okay. The initial plan to take on the central conflict begins, but setbacks occur that cause the hero to try a new approach or adopt new ideas.
So maybe with the Ethereum chain switching it up on us and intentionally raising the cost of our transactions more than everyone else's, even though we're accomplishing a store of value that's more immutable than the Ethereum blockchain, it's become evident that they want to be a store of value as well. And so they have manipulated and corrupted their own system of code is law and standing for something that's decentralized. So yeah, I mean, in my opinion, the community really having to come up with the solution to the Ethereum blockchain, failure in a sense, by creating Pulse Chain, that could be an approach, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's 100% true, and the fact that it forced us, and it forced Richard to adopt these new ideas to go go bigger and better. Absolutely, I think that's part of the approach, because I mean, I think you could say, the way I look at it is the central conflict. You'd probably have to say the central conflict of Hex is with the fiat system, right? Like, is that what you would say the central conflict is?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, any decentralized, right, system, in fact, that is not altruistic. So it's abusing its own power. because the checks and balances have deteriorated, as we see with freedom of the press. People have there's a trust epidemic, right? That's occurring because the media has been sold out to, social networking advertisers and Silicon Valley, big tech, and that has disrupted the balance that may have existed at one point, maybe not, right? But there's always been, I think, a group of people trying to broadcast the truth, and sometimes the broadcast gets further, and sometimes it doesn't, and so.
Yeah, that's a big point as well. Like the fiat system could be the central conflict. But it almost feels as though there's even something a little bit deeper there, right? Like the central conflict may be with deceptive practices, or like people who don't tell the truth, like something along those lines as well. Because I know obviously the truth engine is so fundamental to Hex as well. So I think there's something else there as well. Like, just whether it's deception, whether it's people not keeping their promises, like there's something around that as well that I think Hex battles in a little bit more of an abstract sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's, and I see that as part of the monetary environment that actually either facilitates people becoming better versions of themselves by being more long-term thinking and altruistic, or deteriorates people's mental health by causing them to be more short-term minded in all of the decisions that they make in life as a function of their economic energy and labor and time.
Yes. I think even more things came out of that as well. Like, I think maybe one of the battles is against short-term thinking.
Ooh, yeah.
This is all about delayed gratification and planning and investing in your future self. So I think one of the battles definitely is short-term thinking, and particularly like irrational short-term thinking as well, like the type of thinking that harms your financial well-being. And that's so much of a part of the fiat system as well, is that there's this push to spend because savings don't help you in that system. So it's all kind of quite irrational as well.
Saving is punished and prices go up.
Exactly.
And then they gaslight us with economists winning the Nobel Prize for saying that people are bad at saving, and then saying, oh, just give your money to a pension fund that will force you to save, but still there will be all this robbery against you through inflation, right? Instead of realizing that their base assumption was wrong, that it is the rational thing to do to spend money now.
Yes.
If the price of things is going up in the future. So.
Yes, absolutely. So.
Shout out to one of my allies here in the comments. Speaking of number 6, Joe Hexotic. Yo, Maddie, great to see you. Hope you're feeling good. All things considered. Holler when you can. Thank you for the ENS airdrop. That's right. If anybody ever registered an Ethereum naming system domain, you are entitled to $7,000 or $10,000 worth of coins that you can promptly dump on the market and trade for Hex or whatever you want.
That's pretty cool. Hey, Joe Hexotic. It's good to see you here as well. So I think lots of things that Hex is battling. And I guess just to sum up that point, absolutely, I think the original plan was we're going to be on Ethereum, with this 3 times audited invention product that Richard had made. But then it turns out that Ethereum maybe wasn't so friendly to some of the functions that Hex aspires to, or some of the functions that it requires on the network. And so that became a little bit of a conflict as well. But from that, yeah, we've got this whole, it's like the hero's journey has started again, because now we've got this whole new world of the Pulse chain and all of these new opportunities and this new blockchain, and new ways to improve Hex. So that's kind of incredible, because we'll probably, have to cross the threshold again. And there'll be some tests along the way and all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of like the cycle starts again, but in like a really fun way. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the ordeal is things go wrong and added conflict is introduced. The hero experiences more difficult hurdles and obstacles, some of which may lead to a life crisis. So that's a pretty tough one. And that may be something that I'm not sure I could put my finger on how or when that may have happened for me, which means it possibly could occur in the future.
So the gas fees going up are definitely an ordeal. It's an added conflict that was introduced because it also hurts our onboarding and hurts our short-term value proposition, which was never a value proposition anyway, which is a perfect example of how Hex is better prepared to almost adapt itself and be censorship resistant, be hardened, right, by the more adversity that it comes across, right? Because this is allowing people to show whether they believe in Hex more, because they're willing to invest a little bit more to make the gas fees not hurt as much or not be as big of a percentage of the position, right? So it's filtering out people who would only have purchased a really small amount at this point in the game, which we don't like filtering out people necessarily. That gets really complicated quickly, but it still is a point, I guess, to make.
Yeah, absolutely. As you're talking, I guess, like, I do have a personal ordeal, and like I mentioned it earlier in just kind of the state of how my country has been for the last year as well.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's not Hex related exactly, but it's definitely something that's been caught up in my journey and has set the context for the way I'm thinking about things. But definitely there's been a bit of a crisis there for me as well. It's really led me to question what I think I know about like my country and my government and my rights to travel and all those sorts of things have been questioned. Some things that were just taken for granted for me for most of my life. Has been definitely a crisis. So it's definitely made me much more thankful to have something like Hex, which gives me options for the future, and it gives me, potentially a ticket out if it comes to that as well. So there's definitely, it's been a weird year in that there's been this amazing, explosive, incredible adventure that has been Hex that I've been watching unfold, while at the same time being like in some ways more restricted than I've ever been. So it's definitely, it's been a lot, hey? It's been a lot. But like I said, definitely means that Hex is even more important. And that's why I think, for all of us, we have to just keep our finger on how important Hex is for each of us individually, for us as a community, and for anybody who hasn't yet discovered Hex as well.
And no matter what people believe about politics or public health or anything, maybe, maybe we can agree, or certain people can agree, right, that gridlock benefits people in power. And that's what we've seen with the market cap of the big tech companies, that they have been accumulating more and more power and wealth as the gridlock has persisted. And so that creates a perverse incentive, a corruption that becomes an ordeal, right, to everybody, whether they're aware of it or not.
Yeah.
And so
Definitely. And so I think it is part of the ordeal, and part of leaving the ordinary world as well is beginning to understand that and see that for what it is too. You know, the hero's journey and the call to adventure sometimes has these difficult realizations that you need to make as well. There are hard things you have to realize about what the ordinary world was and the things that you weren't seeing. Sorry, hopefully you can still hear me, but the things that you weren't seeing before you began the journey. So yeah.
Next up is number 9, the reward. After surviving the ordeal, the hero seizes the sword, a reward that they've earned that allows them to take on the biggest conflict of all. It may be a physical item or a piece of knowledge or a digitally scarce coin that pays you more interest the longer that you lock, or wisdom that will help them persevere.
That's pretty cool. The reward. We all love rewards.
Yeah.
What are some rewards that you've had in your time with Hex?
Definitely, it's been super rewarding financially. It's also been super rewarding to be a part of the community. And that really, it came to a head for me whenever I felt like I did something wrong to the community.
Yeah.
And then it was a really good reality check for me to recognize that I value my reputation, right? And like my responsibility to the community, like almost as much, maybe if not more, than I do the financial gains that I've made.
Wow. That's huge. Hey, that's really, really huge. Yeah, I'm very similar. You know, it's been financially, it's been incredible. But this group of people, it's been just incredible to get to know as well and see all of the talent and intelligence that's here. And the fact that there's just so much possibility in front of us. That's been like just an incredible thing to be a part of. And, you know, sometimes there are hard times, and sometimes, you know, like we've been saying throughout the stream, there are times where things are a little bit more emotionally raw or harder. But such a big part of the reward is actually just the value, that intangible value that you can't ascribe a number to, that we have in this community. I mean,
absolutely.
Like just Richard alone with the knowledge bombs, the knowledge bombs that he drops in those streams, like we've been able to just have hours upon hours, hundreds, probably thousands of hours of streams from Richard, where he just shares, you know, wisdom. It's pretty cool to have access to that knowledge base as well that we have in Hex.
Absolutely, the ability to acquire information that helps us in more than just our financial health is certainly rewarding. I agree. Crypto Heartbeat, hey, we heard that you did a similar video and weren't aware of it, but this is how things often go in the Hex community.
Yeah.
Where, you know, they say great minds think alike, and so Blaze had brought this topic to us, and I can't wait to see the points that you've made on it. So sorry for replicating your content, but we really appreciate you, and thank you for the $5 super chat. And again, Tasha with the excellent comparison here. The ordeal, I think, would be someone's first big dip, where we are faced with our true self. What will we do? Bail and sell, or stay the course and hodl? Hodl.
That's great. Therein lies the question. Very true. Very, very true. And I think that's the thing. Maybe we saw, you know, with some of this selling as well, that there may have been a percentage of people that jumped on board because they heard about Pulse, and they may not have been long-term minded. They may not have been willing to withstand some of the trials and tribulations that come along with holding, you know, an asset that can gain so much in value, you know. And some people did make the decision to sell, you know, and that wasn't part of their journey, that their journey stopped at maybe step 1 or step 2. But I think for anybody who wants to stay the course here, like we were just saying, the rewards are amazing, and so worth it.
Absolutely. Sir Edwards Trichome says morals are the best store of value one can find.
Wow, facts. That's fire. I love that.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. Okay, so this one's the road back, which I haven't actually thought about too much, Maddie. So you may have some ideas that I don't. But the road back, the hero sees the light at the end of the tunnel, but they are about to face even more tests and challenges. Anything come to mind for you?
Well, yeah, I think, you know, staking is really, that's a road that we keep coming back to when we're, but I think also just the passion of the community, really anything that makes you bullish, I think is the light at the end of the tunnel, especially if you've time locked yourself so far out.
That's true. Think? Yeah, I think so too. Definitely, like just having those stakes in place, you know, 15 years, 10 years into the future. I know there's always that light there for me, like, you know, both because it's a supremely rational, you know, mathematically sound thing to do, but also because it forces me to become better and delay gratification and learn patience and learn all of these things that maybe don't come so easy for me. So that's definitely always a light. And, you know, I guess we're going to find out what other tests and challenges lie ahead as well, because, you know, there will be more. There will always be more. There'll always be things that don't go to plan, and there'll always be things that unsettle us and, you know, perhaps throw us from our course temporarily.
Yes.
Yeah.
Valiant Brand, thank you so much for the $33 super chat. You rock. And thanks for all the content that you put out. You've really been growing your channel, and I'm like super proud of how you have been crushing it lately.
Absolutely. Great stuff, Bran. And I saw you put out a video maybe not too long ago. Just kind of responding to a couple of claims that had been made. And I thought that you handled that like a champ, and it was really mature. So, great stuff. Great stuff. So that's the road back. Then we have the resurrection, the climax. The hero faces a final test using everything they've learned to take on the conflict once and for all. So I wonder what this could be.
I think maybe, like, you know, one of the things that we have to end up fighting in the end is ourselves.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
And I'm stealing that from Papa B saying it in regards to the Hex documentary, because we haven't found our villain yet.
Yeah.
But in all reality, I think even the fact that once you reach sudden wealth, that it's not the end of the road, that there's still further testing that occurs. For me, I ask myself, how can I not be a rich asshole? How can I pay it forward? How can I stay grounded and feel like myself, not having imposter syndrome, not alienating my long-term relationships, right? Not, and just trying to find ways to keep myself productive, structured, and trying to make the world a better place. These are things I really didn't think about or really acknowledge would be part of this unwell syndrome that it appears many people in the community are having. And so maybe we can make this a special topic even after we kind of cover it in the context of this story arc.
Definitely. I mean, I love how you frame that as that ultimate battle actually is with yourself in a lot of senses. It really is. And some of those, I think we're often fighting, again, those habits that we developed in the old world or the ordinary world, and the belief systems that we had, and the fact that we do experience this cognitive dissonance from time to time of like, this can't be happening. Like, it can't be this good, right? This can't be happening so fast. And I think that disbelief will often creep in, and fears will creep in, and there'll be the urges to sell and to jump ship, and all of those things I think are an ever-present possibility. No one is perfect. No one has got their mentality 100% set in stone. No one is completely infallible with this stuff. So just having the humility to be able to admit that, I think, is really important as well. So I love that. The climax, the battle is with yourself. Very cool. Very, very cool.
Awesome.
And then finally, we have the return. The hero brings their knowledge, or the elixir, back to the ordinary world. Amazing.
Encapsulated t-shirts that people don't even know they're buying.
That could be pretty cool. Just don't even tell them. But yeah, I mean, for me, I think the return, in a basic sense, is onboarding, like beginning the onboarding process, and
totally
having learnt enough to be able to share with other people and show them the ropes and walk them through this hero hexagon journey with you. Being able to act as a mentor and give them that instruction. I think that's all part of the return, because when you've gone through this process, you have transformed in that process as well. You're changed now. You're not the same as how you were when you were in the ordinary world. And you've discovered something important and valuable, and valuable things are worth sharing. And so that's how I would see the return for a hexagon.
I agree.
Awesome.
This is an awesome framework. Yeah. And I see people in the chat are really appreciating and loving it as well.
Yeah, thank you. It definitely is something I've been thinking about for quite a while. And like I said, when I was chatting with Jay last night, I was like, yeah, that's great. I should definitely chat about that, because I just think it's an excellent framework. I think something that's just needed at this moment in time as well. So that's really cool. I'm glad that you like it. For you, this is one question I have. I wonder to myself whether there's like a particular stage that the hexagon community as a whole is at the moment. Like, if you had to try to discern where you think we are as a group, as a community on this hero's journey, what would you say?
I'm gonna have to pull it back up here.
No, there's a lot of stages there.
I would say the ordeal, right? Or test allies and enemies.
It's somewhere around there. Yeah, like I think we may be in the ordeal as well. I think we may be in the ordeal. Because I agree with your idea that the approach was kind of this like Ethereum gas fee issue and having to change direction into pulse chain. And so I think the community as a whole may be in the ordeal at the moment, just working their way out and ready for the reward. But we have to deal with the ordeal properly before we get to the reward.
What if? I think I want to change my answer. I think we're number one. I think we're still in the ordinary world. We haven't even established like all the rabbit holes that we're gonna be exploring.
I love that. Years. I love that answer. That's really cool, because you know what that means. We get to do this all together from step number one, which is amazing. That's really, really cool. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I have been thinking about this for like a little while now, and so I've actually been over the last few months like producing and writing a song that's called Rise, and the subtitle is The Hexican's Journey, and it is based on the hero's journey. And so I'm hoping I'll be able to get that out to everybody in the next month or two, to have a little bit.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah.
Your music is really good, and I've told you that before. I know.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Now you're gonna be making crypto related content. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's just like, it's been in the back of my head for ages, and like I said, it's just been kind of such a strange year that it kind of got pushed out to being able to, you know, actually get it done. But yeah, now that I've moved and I'm in this like cool space and I've got headspace and all that sort of stuff, I think it might be time to finish it. And it just seems kind of timely as well, like it kind of needs to be done. So that's what I'm hoping to do over the next couple of months. And also what I'm in line with that, hoping to offer as well to Hexicans, is a special program that we can do together for anybody who's looking for a little bit of assistance in navigating this path down the Hexican hero's journey. I'll be available to help and offer a little bit of a sounding board and a little bit of guidance through those 12 steps. So I'll be having a little bit more information on that as well, probably in the next few months as well.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so exciting to hear that you've got these projects that are in the works, and I know they're going to be amazing because I've seen your previous work.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that, Maddie.
Now, so tell me more, so are there any other details you can give us on those projects? Like,
what can I give you? So, well, I mean, I guess the feel of the song. So I've done the like music production side of it, and I'm still sort of working on the lyrics and the vocals at the moment. But when I first made it, it was quite like tribal. It almost had like a bit of a battle cry feel to it. But then nice. I like redirected a little bit. It's still in there. Like there's still kind of this like passionate vibe to it, but I also just had a little bit of a think more about like the Hexican community and all of the characters that we have in this space, like all of the diversity of people, and just realized we're also just such a quirky community as well. There are all these like fascinating, funny little things about each of us, and so it's definitely going to have a little bit of quirk in there as well, a few little surprises, and hopefully be able to get everybody up and dancing a little bit as well. So it's like a light-hearted battle cry, one might say, yeah. So hopefully everybody will find it, you know, just kind of fun, but also just give them that a little bit of inspiration as well to stay the path. So that's the song, and in terms of the coaching stuff, that's all like still. Oh, sorry, go on.
So one question about the song: would it be okay if we feature it as the first song on Now That's What I Call Hex Volume 2?
Yes, that's perfectly okay. It's more than okay. I'd be totally down with that for awesome. Sure.
So it's a new era, right? And so we have to
we're ready, right? We're embarking on the hero's journey. So, you know, we've got to have a new first song there, I guess. It makes sense. Yeah, so that's the song. And then, yeah, on the coaching side of things, it's completely like I've literally just started thinking about this in like the last 3 days, and I just realized there was this amazing process there to be able to, you know, help people walk through in, you know, strengthening their minds and becoming more clear on their vision for the future. And like I said, just managing the emotional aspects of being in Hex and, you know, crypto markets and volatility overall, all that sort of stuff. And so I figured, you know, the hero's journey, it's something inspiring that I think people would love to walk down, and that like I said, I think people are already on this journey, so I'll just be that person to help facilitate along the way. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing a little bit of one-on-one with people who may be interested. So like I said, I'll put up some more specific details soon. Yeah, should be pretty fun.
Yeah, well, and let me know how I can promote that once it's up and running, and
awesome.
I'm excited to hear more.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome, Maddie. Thanks for that.
And then I know I definitely want to get your take on sudden wealth syndrome these days.
Yes, always a big topic. Anything in particular you wanted to find out about?
So just for the audience, I guess, you know, what's your description of what is sudden wealth syndrome?
Sudden wealth syndrome is, I would say, I'm going to get too technical here, but it's like the cognitive and emotional reaction one may have to acquiring a significantly larger sum of money than they had previously, and doing that in a short period of time. Obviously, all these terms are pretty relative. But yeah, I'd say there's kind of two components to it. There's like an emotional, almost guilt sense that can come about as a result of it. And then there's like the cognitive, like just finding it difficult to believe, confusion, things not computing kind of side of it as well. So
yeah, it truly is a syndrome, which is a collection of symptoms.
Yeah.
Right? And that's different than something that's more concise or more pathophysiologically defined, right? A disease versus a syndrome versus anything else. So that's yeah, it's really interesting to think about how people have either already started experiencing this or haven't yet. And I know that with the audience that we have watching this channel, I've done some surveys, and it seems like up to half of the viewers are Hex millionaires.
Yes.
A third to a half is
huge.
Really
huge.
Wild.
Yeah, it's actually just crazy numbers how many millionaires Hex has been able to create in such a short period of time. And you know, I completely empathize with people who may be having some sort of reaction to that, because it's very much not the ordinary world at all. And it's a very drastic change for many of us from how things were just 12 months ago or 18 months ago. You know, so I think there's a lot that comes along with it. I think for me, like one of the biggest dangers of sudden wealth syndrome is the fact that there's a risk that people may begin engaging in self-sabotaging behaviors. You know, and for some people who may have been, let's say, selling the bottom on that last dip, some of that could have been sudden wealth syndrome actually playing itself out, because people just can't they just can't deal, you know, it's just too much to take on, and it's almost like there's a tension there that needs to be relieved, and so your brain's searching for ways to relieve the tension, and selling happens, and it's not thought out, and it's not a rational decision. It's something that's coming about as a result of sudden wealth syndrome. So yeah, I definitely think that's one of the bigger, you know, dangers of that.
And going back to an analogy that you've made in the past that I've found really helpful was, you know, maybe sudden wealth syndrome is when you get unplugged from the matrix. Right?
Yes.
And you're like so confused, shocked, you know, kind of want to curl up into a ball and figure out what to do with yourself, right? Or maybe you just, you know, go all out or something. But I think everybody's going to have these like mixed reactions and go through this process of really becoming financially free. And you know, that's complicated because we are social animals that, right, are feeling bad if not everybody in our surroundings can have, right, the same advantages that we have. And some people feel like they're not worthy. They feel like an imposter.
Yes.
They get panicked that they could lose it as quickly as they gained it. And, you know, and then people, as they start to experience life as, you know, getting access to way more rewards and like rewarding levers in the sense of, you know, having access to be able to essentially go anywhere, do anything, or do more than you had been doing, becomes kind of an overwhelming situation where you kind of start to become desensitized maybe to how special or rewarding a certain experience can be. And then you start to get disillusioned or depressed or disconnected from yourself, or a combination of all these.
Yeah, I think you touched on so many important points there, and like the fact that it can be so varied person to person as well in terms of what people experience and how they express sudden wealth syndrome. Like, you know, for some people it could be this wholesale loss of purpose because this need to, you know, go to work every day and be part of whatever it might be, an office environment, for example, is no longer there, you know. So that's one way it can go. And then the other side of that, for some people, it could be an overwhelming sense of responsibility, you know, like this, I have such an opportunity here, I have so much more wealth than I ever expected to have, I don't know what to do with it, and now I'm overwhelmed and I feel really guilty that I'm not doing anything as well, and it kind of paralyzes people from being able to take action. So in either sense, it's not helpful. It doesn't make you feel good. It doesn't make you feel fulfilled. And I think that's like, I think that's a really important point that you made, that people can have different reactions to the same, you know, syndrome or the same process that might be going on. I'm definitely a bit of a nerd because, as you know, I love a good chart. And I also love psychometrics as well. And so I think being able to gain access to a profile of what you look like in terms of, you know, your personality characteristics and your traits, it can actually give you a little bit of information about how you're likely to respond to a stressor such as sudden wealth. And you can start to get a little bit more of an individualized idea of what you can do to actually mitigate that. So that's something like I love to nerd out with as well whenever I'm working with somebody, because I think psychology is so complex and it's so individual, and understanding yourself is such a big part of it as well. And just having that baseline understanding can be half the battle when you're facing something like sudden wealth as well.
Yeah, it's definitely complicated, and I like how you said that we can create profiles and that sort of thing. I've actually had a similar idea. I've been talking to people at the different Hex meetups I've been going to and trying to get feedback from anybody who will listen, because I think that there is a really cool potential. That's one of the things I want to build is kind of a financial personality test
that's really cool.
So maybe we can talk more at some point.
Definitely.
About, some of our ideas there.
I love it. It's awesome, Manny.
And Joe Hexotic is definitely giving some good descriptions of his experience here in the chat of sudden wealth syndrome. He says, Maddie knows a lot of you do. I was homeless last year. Now I'm not, and I'm really not. It's almost an acid trip. It's unfathomable. He says, I stunt on super rich people for sport. It's sadistic. I like making them cringe at me dripping in it. It's an FU to everyone who stepped over me when I was down. I go overboard.
Wow. Yeah, Joe Hexotic, you must have one of the wildest Hexican heroes journeys
Yeah.
Just the extremes that you've experienced in your journey is, yeah, I just think I should actually have a chat to you, because I think yeah, you would have absolutely like a wild story, and you'd be a great person to kind of understand really what people go through as they step onto this wild ride.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's the best. And thank you for sharing your story, Joe Hexotic. And, you know, everything that you do for the community is really awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think kind of one of the ways that we can regulate the sudden wealth syndrome, other than staying grounded, building community, paying it forward, right? Another way is that we can stake, and that takes some of the pressure off of the current moment, saves us from ourselves. I know that my psychology would be a whole lot different. Also, my financial behavior would be a whole lot different if I was in a different environment, in the sense of whether I was 99% staked or 0% staked, as many Bitcoiners are. What's your take?
The staking is crucial, hey? Like, I mean, it's obviously the thing that sets Hex apart in so many different ways, but I think psychologically speaking, it's always, always, always preferable to make a decision from a calm and centered place rather than when you have been exposed to a stressor. So once you're already in a little bit of a panic or already in anxiety, it's almost like too late, because much of your prefrontal cortex has gone offline. Yes. You're coming from the lizard brain. You're not being rational. And so you don't really want to be A, making a decision at that time, but B, even really putting yourself in a situation where you could make a decision at that time, because it's not going to be based on reason. So with staking, that actually gives you the option and the power to decide beforehand, to decide ahead of time in a calm, collected state of mind, and actually formulate your plan correctly and then implement it ahead of time, ahead of schedule, before the stress is there, before you're freaking out. And it's I think it's one of the most important facets of Hex, and why it will be so successful.
Absolutely. Yeah. It alleviates some of the decision making, some of the need for continuous clarity, right? Because when you're not time locking and paying your future self, then you have every moment to be able to mess it up, to be able to have a lapse in judgment, an impulsive moment, right? Or just where your meat computer that is your brain cannot fathom exponential growth. And even though we have the narrative and the example of Bitcoin doing a 6 million X, you could probably take the same people who sold their Bitcoin at $100 and give them the same opportunity, aka Hex, and they would do it again. Because we can't help ourselves sometimes.
It's totally true. I agree with you. I think the probability of them selling again is actually so high. It's so funny, because even even when you cognitively understand something, like even if you are the type of person who's really into maths, and you can get an exponential curve and you can kind of get what that actually means for the numbers, you never fully get it until you're actually doing it, like when you're actually watching it happen, then you get this like deeper level of understanding. It kind of gets into your guts and it gets into your body. But yeah, when you're just sort of sitting and hypothesizing, and it's just too easy to sell. It's just too easy to get into that headspace of disbelief and cognitive dissonance. So,
well, and we're using smart contracts to program our own financial behavior, to program our saving behavior, and that's a new thing in my opinion.
So
Yeah, it's like we're giving ourselves training wheels so that we can actually ride the bike properly.
And, strapping a rocket to the back of that and going
Yes.
to Saturn.
Yeah. A little bit different to your average bike ride, but yeah. Sure.
Joe Hexotic here says, everyone at some point should attempt to hold through an entire cycle with a stake that ends when they don't have another for a while coming out. Try and dollar cost average out when a crash happens. Very good advice.
Yep. Definitely.
So good. Yeah, I think we've definitely touched on the ongoing topic of sudden wealth syndrome. And I know for myself, again, ways that I deal with it are to keep a separate account of my liquid bags versus my long-term stakes. So like I don't look at the total value of all my portfolios. I look at the fraction of my portfolio that's liquid. That way I'm not seeing these big swings every day in, in the number on the screen. I also, I've accepted, my staking journey. I've, accepted that I did my best and then working on self-development, staying grounded, doing things that make me feel like myself, whether that's getting dress pants for 70% off, even though I don't have to, right? Like, but there are some things that just make us feel like ourselves. And so, we don't have, it doesn't have to be Louis Vuitton everything. Okay. And if it is, more power to you, but,
That's exactly right. Yeah, you got to find the thing that and I think that's what so much of Hex is just being really intentional. So not being swayed by herd behavior or herd mentality, but just being really sticking to your plan and knowing what's important and valuable to you, and being pretty single-minded about that stuff. I think even with this purchasing behavior and stuff, it's just very easy to get caught up in unconscious buying and stuff like that. So, I think, again, Hex is has pretty good training wheels for just helping us to stop and think and plan and, execute that plan. And I definitely recommend to anybody who's getting into Hex is really I know the 5555 is daunting, and I would never push anybody to start with that if they feel really uncomfortable, but at least to ask yourself the question of what is my 15-year plan? What actually would be my budget during that time, and how much wealth do I need in order to have the lifestyle that I want, and actually just sitting down and doing the boring financial plan. And you may find that actually, Hex is a 5555 stake is my best vehicle for being able to execute on that plan. I think, just being intentional, planning when you're calm and centered rather than when you're stressed, having a long-term vision, all these things mean that you are set up for success in Hex, and really does remove a lot of those day-to-day variations in price and any stress around dips and all that sort of stuff, because you got your plan, it's 15 years long, and you're going to see it out.
Absolutely. Have you and so now have you heard about all the stuff that's going to be happening in London?
I have, which sounds awesome. Wish I could go. That would be a lot of fun, I reckon. Yeah.
Is travel still being limited so much there?
It's still pretty hard. I would need an exemption, and I would have had to apply for that beforehand, and they're unlikely to approve it unless it's you're permanently moving somewhere. So that's okay. I've got my plan, it's all good. I'll execute it next year, but for the moment, I will have to miss out on that one. But I still think it's going to be incredible. I'll be sitting here and watching it on the telly, and any streaming that's happening, I'll be there and tuned in. So I'm definitely still looking forward to it.
Right on. Yeah, that's yeah, I know that every different place in the world is having different restrictions and everything. So I'm sorry to hear that. And you'll be missed there.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
We'll try to make sure we get some good content streams and everything. I think I'm definitely really excited about it. I've never been to London, and I'm gonna go check it out. Hopefully everything goes smoothly with the travel, but we'll see.
Yes, there's always a little bit of a question mark at the moment, but that's really cool. You get to like London. I love London. It's an awesome city. So I think you'll have a great time. I don't know why. Like I'm not even sure what to call it. I was going to say a nerd, but I don't even know if that's the right word. Like I just really loved the tube in London. Like I just really loved that system. It was just really well done, and I just was like, wow, this is so much better than like Australian transport. It was so good. But aside from that, the rest of the city obviously is beautiful, and a lot of great stuff to see, and great restaurants, great food. You'll have a blast.
I definitely have to do some sort of appearance with Big Ben. Don't they have a big clock tower there?
Yeah, a lot of that stuff. Buckingham Palace.
Yeah, I mean, Hex monetizes time, so the bigger the clock, the better, right?
Do they let you project stuff onto Big Ben? I wonder if you could like somehow get a Hex symbol onto Big Ben.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta look into that.
That'd be really cool. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, and then I was hoping that maybe we could do another stream, in about a month or maybe even sooner, and that way we'll, be able to get our rhythm back. I know I messed it up here in the past couple of months, but I've really enjoyed streaming with you today.
Yeah, I've had an absolute blast today, for sure. And yeah, no worries at all. I know things can get crazy in Hex, and there's been so much going on. I know you were traveling, and you've done a bunch. How was Ukraine, by the way? Was it the Ukraine?
Yeah, it was amazing. The people that I was there with, Gary, Kareem, Steph, and others, they were amazing company to be with. We spent 12 days together. We geeked out about every aspect of Hex. We shared our dreams and what we're building, and really had this amazing chance to have a retreat, but to also, I guess, do some like lifestyle adventure type stuff. So it was
awesome.
fun.
Great work. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to some point in the not too distant future being able to see all you guys in person. It'd be amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, until then, we will absolutely, I'll be very keen to do another stream with you. So yeah, just let me know. And yeah, everybody remember the Hexicans Heroes Journey. We're all on one, and let's help each other through it.
With that being said, stake wisely, my friends, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
See you guys.